So can you tell me how much money goes into your pocket each month as an antique booth owner or a vintage reseller online? If you can't, then you need to watch this video. Hi guys, I'm Melanie. I'm the owner of Lost and Found, and I love helping antique booth owners and online vintage resellers learn how to start and build a profitable business. Today we're going to dig into the topic of profit margin. We're going to talk about how to find it, why it matters, and what it should be. So let's start by defining some terms. You've probably heard of the term markup and margin or profit margin. And essentially they're looking at the same value, which is the amount of money that you can put in your pocket from a sale. But they're just looking at it from two different directions. They're calculating it two different ways. And it's important and helpful to understand what both of them are. So we're going to start with markup. Markup is the amount you increase the cost of an item to get to a sale price. And it's usually described as a percentage. So here's an example. If you sell an item for double the price that you paid for it, that's 100% markup. 100% of the cost of your item was added onto it to get to the sale price. So an item that you buy for $5 and sell for $10 has a 100% markup. If you triple the price of what you paid for an item, then that has a 200% markup. If you 4 times the price that you paid for your item to get to the sale price, that's a 300% markup. I know those numbers sound kind of crazy. How could anybody want to have a 200, 300, 400% markup on their items? They're not as crazy as you think. We're gonna get there. I'm gonna show you why. Most booth owners and resellers assume that if you're doubling the cost of your item to get to your sales price, or you've got that 100% profit margin, that's enough. But in reality, in our specific business where we are selling vintage home decor, it's nowhere close to being enough. And we're gonna get to why. All right, so now let's look at margin. Again, it's describing that same kind of value. You sell an item for here, it costs you this. This amount in the middle is what you get to actually put in your pocket. So it's also referred to as profit margin or just gross profit, total profit. I'll probably use all of those words here in this video, so they're all talking about the same thing. Profit margin describes the percentage of the sale price that is actually your profit. So part of your sale price covers the cost of the item, and the rest of it is money that you get to keep. So going back to our $5 item that we sell for $10, that has a profit margin of 50%. So this half of your sale went to just pay for the item, and this half over here is what you get to keep. You get to keep 50% of your total sale to put in your pocket as profit. So you can see that markup and margin, again, describing that same value, but looking at it from two different ways. Now let's talk about why this matters to you as a booth seller, why you need to know these numbers. So if you can set for yourself a standard markup for the price of your items, then you're going to be able to pretty easily calculate your average profit margin for your booth business. And that is a really, really important number for you to know. If you aren't able to tell me your average profit margin, then you really have no idea the amount of money that you're putting in your pocket every month. Most booth owners and resellers only want to tell me their sales. But your sales, again, it's this number up here. This is the number that we're looking for in here. This is the number that really matters. That's your profit margin, and it's determined by your markup. So let's take a look at this chart real quick. Like I said before, if you typically double the cost of your items, that's 100% markup, and that's gonna get you a 50% profit margin. If you triple the cost, that's a 200% markup, and you're going to get a 66.6% profit margin. 4 times the cost, 300% markup, or a 75% profit margin. 5 times the cost is a 400% markup or an 80% profit margin. So what you have to understand as a small business owner is that this profit margin is not only the amount that you can use to pay yourself a paycheck, but it's also the amount that has to cover all of the rest of your expenses. So your rent, any commission, any credit card processing fees that maybe you pay online, shipping supplies, tags, cleaning supplies, paint that you use to redo things. All of that comes out of this chunk of money right here. And most booth owners, what I'm seeing is that their profit margin is not big enough to cover all of their expenses and pay themselves a paycheck at the end of the month. Now, if you're in this for a hobby and you're just having fun and you're looking to not lose any money, then that's fine. But that has never been me. I have always done this as a way to pay a regular paycheck to my family. So I have to make sure that my profit margin is big enough to not just cover my expenses, but actually put money in my pocket every single month. So you may think that low sales are the reason why you don't really feel like you're making any money. And of course, more sales is always better than less, right? Getting more sales couldn't hurt. But in all honesty, a bigger part of your problem could be that your profit margin is too low. If you could just have a better profit margin for your business with the same amount of sales that you're having right now, you're gonna see more money in your pocket at the end of the month. So as I've coached booth owners over the years, I've always suggested that they start with pricing their items at least 3 times what they paid for it. So if you buy an item for $5, that means you're gonna price it at 15. Now, to be honest, in the past year or so, with inflation, with what it costs me to run my business, with what it costs me to feed my family, I'm upping that number a little bit. I'm shooting for that 4 times number, that 75% profit margin at least. That's what I really need to be hitting to pay myself a paycheck at the end of the month. So I want to pause for just a second and make sure that you understand that I'm talking about kind of averages for your business. It's tough in our business because we're not selling the same item over and over and over and over. We're not a grocery store that sells the same kind of cereal that costs them the same amount at the same price 100 times. We're selling this whole variety of items, and every once in a while, you're gonna find some banger of an item that maybe you can't hit that 66 or 75% profit margin on. And I'm not telling you that, don't buy it, don't sell it. Hey, if you can make 50%, 40%, that still is great. What I'm talking about is on the whole, on average, what is your business number running? As you take let's step back from your business and look at the whole thing together. If on average, you're running at a 40% profit, 50% profit, maybe even a 60% profit, you're likely probably not putting enough money in your pocket at the end of the month, okay? So let's not get so dialed in on exact specific numbers for specific items, but remember that we're looking at this as a whole and as an average, because that's kind of the way we have to do it for our type of business. So I have a couple other videos here on my channel where I've shared my profit margin. I've shared items that I've sold, what I bought them for, and what I've sold them for. And a lot of them have 75, 80% profit margins, so that 300, 400% markup. And I've caught some flack from people in the comments saying that I'm price gouging, that I'm greedy. How do I feel okay about doing that? I've also talked to other resellers that have used those same words, that they feel like they're price gouging. If they buy something for cheap, they feel like they can't mark it up that high. I can't take a $2 item and sell it for 15. That makes me a bad human being. I get that this sort of pricing strategy seems high, and that you could feel a little bit uncomfortable with it. And even watching this video, you may think, oh gosh, Melanie seems like, she's kind of greedy here. Like, why does she have to price stuff that high? I'm gonna show you guys with the numbers though why it matters, because the numbers don't lie. I'm not trying to be greedy. I'm just actually trying to pay myself a paycheck. There's a reason why we have to follow this pricing strategy, and it's because that's the only way to actually have a sustainable long-term business with what we do and how our businesses work. So it's important to pause here in the video as I explain the rest of this and talk to you guys about the idea of selling consumable versus non-consumable goods. Because there's 2 different types of businesses in the world. And of course, like that's simplifying it. There's kind of things that fall here in the middle. But in general, businesses sell items that are consumable or that are non-consumable. So what are examples of consumable items? Well, it's stuff that you buy and you use it, and then you go and you need more. So groceries, shampoo, your toiletries, gas, cleaning supplies, paint, pool chemicals, all of those things. You're just consistently ongoing buying them because you use up what you buy and you have to go back and get more. So a non-consumable good is the exact opposite. It's something that you buy and you don't use it up and have it disappear and have to go replace it. All of these books on my shelves back here are non-consumable goods. I read them and they're still here. I can read them again. I don't have to replace it every time I read it. So most of the items that we are selling in our businesses are non-consumable. They're home decor items. Someone buys that pretty ironstone picture from you and it doesn't disappear at the end of the month and they have to come buy it from you again, right? They buy it once and it stays there. So any business that is selling primarily consumable items is by nature going to have a higher volume of sales. And when I say volume, I mean like that top line total number of sales that you're seeing every month. Of course they are, because people are constantly needing those items. Us guys over here, by nature, we're going to see a business that has a lower volume of sales because people don't just need our stuff as often. I've seen this myself in my own business. I ran an online store for 7 years that sold consumable items. I sold furniture paint and DIY supplies. And you guys, the volume of that business was huge because people would buy their paint and they would use it and then they would need more. And so I was shipping orders every single day. So now I have an online store that sells just vintage and home decor. Those are non-consumable items and I just don't have the volume that I had over here because people buy it once and then they keep it for forever. And then in maybe 6 more months, they find something else that they want to buy. It's just not the same level of regular customer purchasing that you see. So now that you understand this, consumable versus non-consumable, and how this one over here is naturally just going to have a higher sales volume than this one over here, you also need to understand that in general, if you have a higher sales volume, you can function with a lower profit margin. If you have a lower sales volume, it's really hard to see any growth or stability in your business with a small profit margin. It has to be higher. Let's take just a few minutes and put some numbers to this to help you understand. Here we're going to compare a business that sells consumable goods to one that sells non-consumable goods. So you can see that the consumable business has $50 items that they sell over and over again. Those items have a 30% profit margin, which means per item they are making $15 of profit. Let's say that that business, just for numbers' sake, sells 30 of those $50 items every month. So that's $15 times 30. They are walking away with $450 of total profit a month. That's compared with a business that's selling non-consumable items, which again is just by nature going to sell less. They also have $50 items. They also have that same $30 profit margin on their items, so $15 an item, but they only make 10 sales a month. They're only making $150 of total profit a month. Now, I realize that seems obvious, and you're saying, Melanie, they just need to sell more. But again, we're not comparing apples to apples. This is apples to oranges. This is groceries versus decor. This is gas versus books. They're two totally different businesses, and our business falls into the non-consumable category where by nature, again, we're going to be selling a lower sales volume. So let's look at a different way to tackle the problem. If you can't just naturally increase the amount of sales up to this kind of high volume that the consumable business is doing, what you can do is you can increase your profit margin. Take a look at the difference that it makes when the non-consumable business sells that same $50 item, but maybe this time they have a 75% profit margin on it. So for each item that they sell, they're now making $40 per item instead of $15. And with that same sales volume of just 10 sales, they now have the same amount of money of total profit at the end of the month that the other business does. So you can see how your sales volume really makes a difference. If you're selling a lot, then you can afford that lower profit margin. But if you by nature have a lower sales volume, you're going to have a higher profit margin to get to the same amount of money at the end of the month. All right, so let's put a few more numbers to this so you can really start to understand how to apply this to your own booth or reseller business. So let's put some numbers again to this just as an example so you can see how this idea could be affecting you in your own business. Take a look at business A. They have $1,000 of sales in their business, and we're just going to say these are antique booth businesses. And in general, their items are priced with a 50% profit margin. So that leaves them with $500 of gross profit. Out of that $1,000, $500 of that is their gross profit. But then they also have to subtract their rent. And let's say that rent is $100. They also pay a 10% commission to their mall in sales, which is another $100 that you have to subtract. And then let's say in the month they spend $50 on supplies. Maybe that's paint for another piece of furniture they're working on, or new tags or business cards. And then, you've got to go buy a little bit of new inventory because you sold $1,000 worth of stuff. And we all know shopping is the fun part. So they go and take $200 and they go buy new inventory. What is the actual amount that business A is left with for their paycheck? Only $50. That's all that is left to actually pay themselves a pure paycheck for the amount of work that went into running their booth for the month. Now let's look at business B. Same thing. They start with $1,000 of sales, but they have a 75% profit margin. So they've upped their prices a little bit more. Maybe they've shopped smarter. They have really hunted for good deals. They've only bought items that they feel like they can, are at the right price, that they can really mark up that high and get that profit margin. So they're starting with $750 of gross profit instead. And we're going to subtract the exact same amount of money from them, $100 of rent, $100 of commission, $50 of supplies, and $200 of new inventory. But look, they have $300 left to actually pay themselves a paycheck. Would you rather have $300 to pay yourself at the end of the month rather than $50? If you do that every month, can you actually maybe take your family on vacation over the summer, or, do some yard work that you want to do, or maybe a little mini home renovation? $300 a month in your pocket versus $50 a month in your pocket is a huge difference, you guys. And the only thing that changed was the profit margin. So how do you go about doing that? It really comes down to shopping smarter, avoiding places where you're buying stuff that's maybe costing just a little bit too much, or upping your prices a little bit. Again, it is okay to ask a higher price for an item if you think your market can support it. If you get a great deal on an item, that doesn't mean that you have to also price it extra cheap. This is going to take a little bit of thinking and numbers crunching on your part, but I hope you can see how just this small tweak in your business numbers makes for a big difference at the end of the month. So I hope that seeing that all laid out that way kind of takes the emotion out of this whole pricing strategy for you. Maybe helps you not feel bad about the idea of pricing your items 3 or 4 or 5 times higher than what you paid for them, because you're seeing that, again, the numbers don't lie. And for a business like ours that is selling these non-consumable goods that people are going to buy every once in a while, and we're small businesses, we have these smaller volumes, for us to get paid for the time that it takes us to hunt down these items, clean them, stage them, drive them back and forth to our booth, we have to have that higher profit margin. It's not about price gouging people. It's not about being greedy. It's about being able to pay yourself a paycheck. So here are some action steps for you. Number 1, start recording what you pay for your items. If you don't do that, then you're going to have no way to calculate your profit margin. Number 2, if you have been recording what you pay for your items, then look back over your past few months, grab your sales sheet, calculate your average gross profit margin for your items. Take a look at what you sold in November, what you paid for it all, and calculate on average what that profit margin is. Do it again for December, do it again for January, and then average those 3 numbers together. And that's going to give you some idea of kind of where you're standing as a business and if your numbers are healthy. Now, if you want to dig into it deeper, you can start factoring in other numbers that will affect your profit margin even more. So you can find the percentage of your rent that you pay that goes into your profit margin per item. You can make sure to add in that commission that you pay to your booth. You can look at any sort of credit card processing fees that maybe you pay online as an online seller, or on average, how much in shipping supplies do you pay, do you buy in a month? That can become a percentage that goes into your profit margin. You can really dial this down and really get a closer idea of what exactly are you taking home each month. And the last one, number 4, is if you're operating at anything less than that 66% profit margin, that 3 times markup for your items, I'm going to ask that you consider raising your prices on your items. Not because you're greedy, not because you want to price gouge people, but because you want to actually be able to pay yourself a paycheck. You want to have a couple $100, $500, $600 at the end of the month to show for your hard work. All right, you guys, I know that I threw a lot of numbers at you, but I hope that this was helpful for somebody today. If you've got some questions, let's dialogue about it in the comments. If you want more help in this though, I do offer one-on-one coaching sessions. You can find out more info about that on my website. I'm going to toss the link for it right up here, and it'll also be in the description box. I can help you dive into this or other areas of your business a little bit more. Thanks so much. See you guys again soon.